"It's already been processed," the clerk said. Jack pressed record and asked him to repeat it. The pen in his pocket shifted when he leaned forward. Small, metallic click. The kind of sound that marks when something changes. The kid behind the counter didn't even blink. He looked 25, maybe less, with a badge that said Michael T. And the kind of tone people use when they've said the same thing too many times. "Yes, sir. It's already been processed." His smile was polite but distant, the kind that says the conversation's over before it starts. Jack stood there a second longer, the small recorder in his hand flashing red. You could hear printers humming, the buzz of fluorescent lights, the air conditioner breathing too cold. A line of people waited behind him, pretending not to listen. He didn't argue, just said, "All right," and walked out. The automatic doors hissed, spilling sunlight too sharp for his eyes. Heat rolled off the asphalt, pressing through his shirt. For a moment, he wondered if that kid even knew what those words cost. In the truck, he replayed the recording. The kid's voice sounded thinner through the speaker. Status correction. Like it meant nothing. He played it again, slower. Then silence, heavy enough to drown the road noise. At home, he opened his laptop, no deposit. He checked again, like the numbers might change if he stared long enough. They didn't. Bills sat in a stack on the counter, folded neatly, each one stamped past due. He opened a drawer, pulled out a folder labeled VA, and added a new sheet of paper. Today's date, the clerk's name, time, words. The handwriting was blocky, clean, steady. Then he pressed record again. His voice came out calm. Day 1. Payment stopped. Reason given, status correction. He didn't raise his tone, didn't curse. Just wrote, labeled, logged. The recorder's red light blinked on the table, steady as a heartbeat. Outside, a siren passed somewhere far off. Jack looked up at the sound, then back down at the page. One note became 2, then 3. He kept writing until the pen slowed in his hand. Tomorrow, he'd start calling. The next morning, he was on hold before sunrise. The VA hotline played the same piano loop, too bright, too calm. Every few minutes a voice cut in, saying, "Your call is important to us." The sound filled the kitchen until it felt like part of the air. Jack sat at the kitchen table, a legal pad open, every minute written down like evidence. 6:32, still waiting. 6:51, still waiting. At 7:12, a voice finally came through, too polished, too polite. "Sir, your case is currently under review." He asked what that meant. The woman repeated it word for word. "Your case is currently under review." He wrote the phrase down exactly as she said it. Then he hung up. The red light on his recorder blinked again. 2 hours of nothing but hold music and repetition. He saved the file, titled it Day 2, Phone. That night, he went to the Veterans Center. The same plastic chairs, the same coffee that tasted like dust. A few guys he knew from group were there. One of them, Eddie, leaned forward and said, "They cut mine last month." Same line, status correction. Jack looked at him for a moment. "You record it?" Eddie shook his head. "Didn't think I had to." The room went quiet. Someone turned down the TV in the corner. You could hear the air unit rattle against the wall. Jack pulled out his folder, thick already with printouts and notes. "Start writing everything. Names, dates, times. Every word." They watched him like he'd just given orders in a briefing. A few nodded, slow, like they remembered the rhythm. Back home, Jack added a new section, other cases. He listed Eddie's name, 2 more from the room, copied down their storylines. He didn't know what he was building yet, only that it felt necessary. The apartment was quiet except for the scratching of his pen. On the table, the recorder kept running, catching every small sound. The drag of paper, his steady breathing, the occasional sigh when another bill slid from the envelope pile. At 9:47, he stopped writing and looked at the blinking light. "Under review," he said softly. Then he clicked save. 3 weeks later, a guy from the center, an older Marine named Frank, mentioned something called FOIA. "Freedom of Information Act," he said, tapping his coffee cup. "They can't ignore that." That night, Jack searched how to file one. The website looked like it hadn't changed since the 90s. Gray boxes, dead links, government fonts. He filled it out anyway. Name, address, service number, requesting documents related to benefits reclassification. He printed 3 copies, signed them in blue ink, and mailed 1 certified. Then came waiting. Every day after breakfast, he checked the mailbox. Same metal squeak, same empty slot. He started marking the weather in his notes too. Cloudy, 90 degrees, wind from south. The record became a kind of diary, not for feelings, but for facts. One afternoon, a thick envelope finally showed up. Return address, Department of Veterans Affairs. His hands didn't shake, but his breathing changed, slower, heavier. He set it on the table, started the recorder, and opened it. Inside were pages of black bars. Whole sentences gone, names buried under ink. But one line near the bottom stood clear. Target reduction achieved. 37% fewer active payouts this quarter. He read it again, then again slower, tracing the letters with his finger. Target reduction. The phrase didn't sound like error, it sounded like policy. He flipped through the rest, noting page codes, timestamps, initials at the bottom. One repeated name caught his eye, M. Trent. The recorder clicked as he spoke. Internal memo. Mentions target reductions. Same clerk signature. He leaned back, exhaled, long and steady. The apartment felt smaller now, as if the walls had drawn closer to here. That night, he stayed up cross-referencing details, dates on the memos, denial timestamps, signatures. By midnight, patterns emerged. Same hour, same initials, same phrasing in the rejection letters. The light from his desk lamp buzzed faintly, the only sound besides the scribble of his pen. At some point, he stopped writing and just stared at the stack. It wasn't personal anymore. He whispered, "They're doing it to everyone." Then he clicked the recorder off. The next morning, Jack drove to the public library. He needed a real computer, not the old laptop that froze every hour. The librarian gave him a nod. She'd seen him before, quiet, methodical, always with the same folder under his arm. He logged in, plugged a small flash drive into the port, and opened the files he'd copied from the FOIA packet. The PDFs were heavy with metadata, timestamps, user IDs, document trails. He wasn't an expert, but he'd learned enough from online forums. One field caught his attention, reviewed by M. Trent, and beneath it, approved by S. Holbrook. He typed the second name into a public salary database. The screen blinked. Samuel Holbrook, Regional Supervisor. Awarded Efficiency Performance Bonus, Quarter 2. Jack's jaw locked. For a second, he just watched the cursor blink beside the name, steady, patient. The red light on the recorder blinked back. Same rhythm, like the two were keeping time. Supervisor linked to reclassification quota, he said softly. Confirmed. He didn't smile. Just saved the screen as a PDF and ejected the drive. For the first time in weeks, it almost felt like things might end right here. That evening, he reached out to a local journalist, a woman named Lisa Grant, who'd once covered veterans' housing issues. Her number was still listed on an old article. She answered on the third ring. He told her only what could be proven, document codes, dates, memo language. No emotion, no theory, just proof. She asked if he'd be willing to go on record. He said, "Only if my voice stays off camera." 2 days later, her story went live online. Headline: Veterans denied benefits under hidden quota program. Within hours, veteran forums lit up. Hundreds of comments, same wording, same status correction. By evening, congressional offices were tagged in the threads. Michael Trent, the clerk, resigned by morning. Local news stations picked up the story, cameras outside the VA office. Jack watched the coverage on mute, the captions scrolling faster than he could read. Then came the letter, official seal, embossed edge. Your benefits have been reinstated. Back pay included. He read it once, then folded it, slid it into a drawer. Didn't even look at the amount. For a moment, he thought it was over. The recorder light blinked again. Day 61, he said. They finally noticed. The hearing room smelled like burnt coffee and air conditioning. Rows of microphones lined the table, polished until they reflected the ceiling lights. Jack sat near the back, not in uniform, just a plain gray shirt, the same folder on his knees. His name wasn't on the schedule. He wasn't there to speak. He'd already said everything that mattered, and it was all on paper. At the front, the supervisor, Holbrook, raised his right hand, took the oath. The cameras clicked in unison, that dry insect sound of shutters. Jack didn't blink. He watched the man's eyes move too fast, watched the hands fidget near the water glass. A congresswoman asked the question Jack had written weeks ago in his notes. Was there a quota system for benefit reductions? Holbrook hesitated. Then came the words Jack expected. Not officially. The room shifted. Reporters leaned forward, pen scratching. Lisa Grant sat 2 rows ahead, recording on her phone. She turned slightly, just enough for Jack to see the corner of her smile. Quiet, restrained, like someone who knew what truth cost to earn. When the gavel dropped, the session ended. The lights buzzed back to full brightness. People stood, gathering papers, whispering into phones. Jack stayed seated a moment longer. Then he rose, picked up the box of documents by his feet, and walked toward the exit. Outside, the morning had that clean, early light, the kind that makes everything sharper. The VA building behind him gleamed like nothing had happened. Through the glass doors, he could still see the flag inside. Halfway up the pole, catching the first wind. He stopped near the steps, opened the box. The papers, neatly stacked, looked weightless now. He left it there, by the railing, not as a symbol, just because it didn't belong to him anymore. Then he turned toward the parking lot. The sound of his boots echoed, slow and even. He didn't look back. Somewhere above, the flag rope clinked against the pole. Once, twice, same hollow sound as the recorder button he'd pressed that first day. He looked up, nodded once, and kept walking.